You're still dressed like Ian Malcolm. I love it.
Oh yeah, I forgot to.
You should just drop an Ian Malcolm quote.
I can't. Give me a good one.
Uh, you should just do his laugh from the helicopter scene.
Oh God, I can't do his laugh.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Minecraft Disney Top 5. I am here once again joined by Christine, and we're at mcmagic.us, which is the one-to-one scale recreation of Disney World here in Minecraft. And today, we're going to be taking a look at the top 5 ride vehicles in Walt Disney World. Christine, welcome back.
Thank you.
We're going to just jump right into it. You know, first off, just a disclaimer, this isn't like the objective top 5 or anything. This is just our opinions. So don't go crazy if it's not what you want to see. But we're going to jump right in, and we're going to start here at my number 5, which is, it's my half number 5. It's my 5.5. It's Star Tours, which also I say that because it's Body Wars. And I think the reason that this is my number 5 is because the ride vehicle is also the ride at the exact same time. And there's something really special about that. I mean, I don't know, if you've never been on the ride, it's a giant simulator type vehicle that sits, I don't know, like 30 or 40 people at a time with a screen in front. And it's made to look like a speeder ship, at least here in Star Tours. And Body Wars is made to look like a little spaceship that goes in your bloodstream. And the entire ride takes place in the simulator, and you're watching the movie on the screen while it's shaking and moving in sync with what your vehicle is doing in the story. And there are all sorts of lights and effects to sort of add to the experience. And I think that's sort of any sort of ride vehicle that I think is so integral to the actual ride itself is what sort of earned it that place on my list.
Yeah, I mean, I also kind of like the update that they did, where they like take the picture now of like the the Rebel.
Yes,
that you
that's
have
right.
To like find and it works so well because of the way that the vehicle is laid out, because you're kind of sitting there like almost in the theater. And
Right.
so it must have been so easy for them to implement something like that, because you can see the faces of everybody in there, the way everyone's kind of sitting. But yeah, I really like it. It's really cool. And you know, the whole thing with the new one at C-3PO is your guide. And I mean, that's technically part of the vehicle as well. And yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, any ride where the vehicle is literally the ride.
Right.
Gets a vote. So
All right, so let's move on to your number 5, which is over in the Magic Kingdom. And it is the teacups here over in Fantasyland. So Christine, why are the teacups your number 5?
So it's kind of the same idea of why you liked the Star Tours vehicle. Obviously, the vehicles and teacups are the ride. So, I mean, when you really think about it, I guess it's not all that different from a lot of the spinning rides that you can get at, local, fairs or whatever. Though I always felt like the ones here have always been faster and always work a bit better. And again, that probably is just a testament to how well Disney takes care of their ride vehicles. But yeah, I mean, the vehicle obviously is the ride. The theming is great because you're actually in the teacups, during Mad Hatter's Tea Party. And I have come to realize that if you put a couple of really strong people into a teacup, you can go ridiculously fast to the point that
You black out.
Your head hurt. Yeah, I mean, I have a video where I'm trying to take a video on the ride, and the whole video is just me kind of rotating in a circle because I couldn't keep myself sitting still. And then you get off, and then your legs are all wobbly, and I think that's, the best. But what I also like is, you can have little kids go on there, and obviously they're not going to want to go super duper fast. And
unless they're cool kids, and then they definitely will.
But I like that you can choose the speed, and so the ride can be anything from a really fun, fast ride for some people, and it can be really tame for, little kids and parents. And I like that, you kind of choose what you want it to be.
Yeah, I was about to, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say part of what I really like about these vehicles is that you have the complete control over how fast it spins or doesn't spin. And that sort of interactivity is something that I value a lot when it comes to any of the attractions at Disney, which we'll probably see later on in the list. Okay,
Right.
and
No,
also,
I
the theming is really great. Like, it's just perfect for Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you've got the Tea Party music going on, and I mean, just in general, I always go on them, even though to some people on the outside it's like, they're a simple like fair ride, but because of the theming, because like I said, they take care of their vehicles so well and everything, I always go on it anyway.
All right, so we're going to skip my number 4 because that's actually pretty high up on your list, so we'll visit it later. So let's head over to your number 4, which is back in Epcot again. This is a lot of walking between parks because we do this all in real time walking. But let's head on over. So here we are at your number 4 in Future World in Epcot, and it is Mission Space. So again, why is this on your list?
So spoiler alert, this is also my favorite ride. Oh no, now you're gonna know.
There goes that list. That list is out the window. Also, it's funny. That'll be a fun list to do because it is your favorite ride. It is my least favorite ride.
I know, Rob. I know you dislike it, and every single time we've been to Disney together, we just argue about it. But anyway, that's a whole other...
another video for another time.
The reason why I love this vehicle, again, is the idea that, it is the ride. I think a lot of my choices are kind of in that vein, because to me, it's not, they're all rides in Disney are themed great, but I like the ones that, it actually is a integral part of the ride. And this one is pretty freaking awesome because, let me put this straight. There are 2 versions of the ride.
Right.
There's the tame version.
The real version and then...
lame version. And the real version. So the real version is... I would like to say that I know the name for it.
Isn't I don't centrifuge. Centrifugal.
It's like a centrifuge. Yeah. It is the same kind of vehicle that NASA actually uses for training astronauts to, understand what the feeling of certain G-forces are going to be. Right. So that's the real ride. Is the one that actually spins and creates those feelings. There's a regular one for people who can't really handle that because, trust me, there's a whole sign when you walk in that's like, if you have all of these problems, you will die. So
it was a big deal when this launched that people were getting sick for like the rest of the day.
Yeah. So it's definitely not for those who can't handle that kind of stuff. But there's another version that doesn't spin. But I'm talking about the actual one that spins.
Right. Team Orange.
So you get in, and it sits 4 across. It closes in pretty tightly. So if you're claustrophobic, you're not gonna like that either.
Right.
Because the whole front console comes down into you, so that the screen is right in front of you, and you're connected to, if you could see it from the outside, there's a whole bunch of these sections of 4 seats, but they're inside their own little cabins, but they're all connected together, and they're literally spinning in a circle super freaking fast.
Yep.
If you look away from the monitor, you will realize that you're spinning. I don't recommend it. But that's kind of the brilliance of it, is that if you're focusing straight ahead on what's happening in your mission to Mars, you don't really realize you're spinning, but you're getting all of the feeling of takeoff. When you're about to take off, you feel all that pressure on your chest. And when you hit out into space, you all of a sudden feel like you're floating. And I just love how visceral the feelings are. And obviously it has to do with the way that the vehicle is built. And, everything about it, you each have your own role. You're a pilot or an engineer, and you've got the buttons and the switches and all of that cool stuff that's supposed to look like the inside of a space shuttle.
Right.
Overall, I think it's a pretty freaking great vehicle.
And most important role of all is you are the pioneer hero in Gary Sinise's heart. As you go to live on Mars.
And everyone loves Gary Sinise.
Everybody. Nobody doesn't. And to that point, by the way, if you don't like the claustrophobic, spaces or the spinning, then just for future reference, you're probably never going to go to space in real life.
This is true.
That's a bummer, but here's a good place to get some training. And like I mentioned, it isn't my favorite ride. It's my least favorite, but I do appreciate that they put in the effort to theme the area, to feel like a space. It might have been just a coincidence that they needed to keep it such a tight space, but it creates that feeling of claustrophobia that you would get in a spaceship today, because they're not very roomy things. And they have that sort of interactivity, which, you can argue to the effect of how interactive they are, since they'll take over for you if you don't hit the buttons.
Sure,
but just adding that level of pushing a button or pulling back on a lever does sort of add a little bit to immersing you into the situation. So I could definitely see why this would be somebody's favorite ride vehicle. And like you said, again, it's sort of the vehicle is the ride, which I can definitely understand. Also, I noticed, so between the teacups and this ride, are you just into ride vehicles with a lot of G-forces?
Possibly. Actually,
You're just
now
spinning?
I'm thinking about some other things on my list.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rest of your list, and I mean, a lot of them involve G-forces.
I am a thrill ride person, so I guess that makes sense.
Okay. So next we're going to move on to my number 3, which is over in the Animal Kingdom, of all places. And let's go check it out. This is perfect. Oh, man, this would be the perfect place to drop a Ian Malcolm quote, because dinosaurs, So here we are at my number 3, which is Dinosaur in the Animal Kingdom. This is my number 3 favorite ride vehicle, partially because of the ride that it gives you, the experience it gives you, but also for an appreciation behind the scenes of the vehicle. So if you've never been on the ride, you go back in time to collect a dinosaur, and it's happening right before the asteroid that killed all the dinosaurs is going to hit the planet. So you're sort of in a rush. And if you've ever ridden the ride, it is a very rocky and bumpy and rough ride. It's throwing you left and right and back and forth. A lot of hydraulics are in use there. And so I, on one hand, I really appreciate this ride because of that, and because, I like rough rides like that. I think it definitely adds to the immersion of the scenario you're in. You're in prehistoric times. You're not necessarily somewhere where there are paved roads. So there's that element to it. But then on the other hand, as somebody who's just a big fan of the behind-the-scenes stuff, I appreciate that the actual ride path that the vehicle travels over is completely smooth. It's on wheels on a smooth concrete ride track. But what happens is the hydraulic systems on the vehicle itself is what's shaking you around and throwing you back and forth. And I don't know, I guess from an engineering standpoint, I really appreciate that. And I think it's one of those things where it just works perfectly with the theme of the ride, and it creates a fun ride experience. And it's got dinosaurs in it. So,
yeah. Yeah, Dinosaur is definitely one of those rides that I purposely go to Animal Kingdom for.
Right.
And like you said, the idea of it kind of throwing you around really is immersive. Yes, it like you said, no paved roads, but also, I mean, just the chaos of what's going on. I mean, you are rushing to grab a dinosaur right before an asteroid hits, which whose idea that was, I don't know.
Talk about the odds. I mean, just of all of time to get that.
But the fact that you're just being thrown around and turning this way and turning that way, and in the ride, it's you're desperately trying to find the right dinosaur, and the computer is analyzing each dinosaur that you see to see if it's the one that you're looking for, and you're doing it fast because you don't have a lot of time, and so it really adds to the chaos and kind of gets your adrenaline going between that and obviously ginormous animatronic dinosaurs, which are terrifying. But I think it makes it that much more scary. I think if you took away all the hydraulics and all of that, yes, a dinosaur popping out at me would still be scary, but there's something about the fact that it's just moving so fast and you're in the dark and you can't necessarily see everything because you're turning so quickly, makes it 10 times more frightening, and I absolutely love it. I like being scared. So I think, I think it's a great ride vehicle. Though I've always tried to figure out how the vehicle fits the dinosaur. Do they like shrink it?
Maybe they have like a U-Haul cart attached to the back that we don't
like
see.
Where is this dinosaur going?
Maybe it's just like riding on the back, just like hop on the bumper. Let's go, dinosaur! Let's get out of here! Yeah, and to a point, I think that we'll see in the next ride vehicle that we're going to cover. I think the darkness hides your ability to guess or try and anticipate what's going to happen next, and without having that ability, it really throws you into a greater sense of confusion, which, you know, makes it scarier because we're scared of the things we don't know that's coming. So, yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the next one, that is your number 3. It is back in the Magic Kingdom. Let's go check it out. It is in Tomorrowland. So your number 3 is Space Mountain.
Indeed. So this is a little bit more theming, a little less. I mean, obviously the vehicles are part of the rides, roller coaster, but it's more for the theming and a bit of the nostalgia
And the G-Force.
And the G-Force. Yeah, there really is a trend here. I love the vehicles in Space Mountain. I like them more than most roller coasters because I like that they're single seating, which really makes sitting in the front a lot of fun and almost kind of a solitary experience. I mean, obviously you have people sitting behind you, but let me tell you, it is something really cool about being the person right in the front, and I kind of like that you can do it kind of on your own and experience that. But yeah, I love the way that they're lined up. Obviously, they're themed to look like a spaceship.
Yep.
If only spaceships were that little and easy to ride on.
Talk about claustrophobic.
Total opposite of Mission Space. Yeah, I love them. I love the low seating when you like get in there. It's kind of cool. Again, yeah, like I said, I like the G-Forces. Because it's only 4 seats, it kind of makes you feel like your vehicle's going a bit faster. And you kind of are. I mean, if you think about the physics of it, you have less people, you have less vehicles. And once you kind of get pushed over that mountain, you're just kind of going. Yeah, I mean, again, it is a combination of both the vehicle and the darkness that kind of comes together and makes it great. But I also just love that, this ride has been around forever. And it still works very well, and the vehicles still feel good. Like, I've been on some old roller coasters where you're starting to feel their age, and It's kind of scary. And this isn't like that. Like, I mean, again, it's been refurbed pretty recently, but it's just, as old as it is, still feels, like it still fits in 2014,
Yeah. And I mean, for me, it's entirely theming, which is what I really enjoy about the ride vehicle. Is it's got that 1950s Rockwellian, view of the future where everything was slick and smooth and sort of looked like the V2. And despite refurbing the ride and other elements of it, that remains. And I think that's so like core to what Tomorrowland has become that it's just like a great, like almost iconic, I feel like, at this point. Maybe not like your outsider who hasn't like gone to Disney a whole lot, but I think there's just something so memorable about the way that ride vehicle looks to a Disney fan that is really great. So yeah.
And that just made me think of, I think part of it is, do you remember like the poster? Like,
yes.
Way when it came out? Exactly. So if you know Disney, and like most people who've known it pretty well, the poster that looks kind of ridiculous with the 4 people in it blasting off into space, but they're in the ride vehicles. And I think, like, as soon as you said that, that was the first image that like came into my head. It's like that old like 80s poster.
You could probably argue that it's one of the most famous looking roller coaster vehicles. Like, I'm sure there are other like bigger roller coasters out there, but as far as like just the cars on their own, Space Mountain's just sort of like stands out on its own.
Now that we're talking about it, I kind of wish I could be on it.
I know, right? Well, welcome to my every single week when I make a Disney video. Okay, so next up we have your number 2, which is also my number 2. For once, we actually agreed on something perfectly.
Yes.
And that's here in this park as well, over in Liberty Square. Doom Buggies! The Haunted Mansion, that's our number 2, the Haunted Mansion's Doom Buggies. I mean, what is there to say? This one, more than anything else, I think is iconic, right? It's part of the Haunted Mansion. It's the Doom Buggy. It is a ride vehicle that has its own name. Not many of the ride vehicles in the world have that, honor, right?
Right.
But I think what sets this apart compared to something like Spaceship Earth or, any other Omni-Mover system is that this Doom Buggy manages to, I think, perfectly fit the design of the ride that it's a part of, and at the same time perfectly sort of encapsulate what an Omni-Mover ride vehicle supposed to be, which is that, it's okay, so it's this big, dark, almost coffin-looking shape, right? Because it sort of encloses on you on the sides.
Right.
And that gives you that claustrophobic idea of getting into a casket, which fits within the theme. But at the same time, by having those deep sides that are blocking your side view, it sort of directs where you're looking when you're on the ride. And that's something that Walt Disney was like a very big fan of when it came to these ride vehicles, is sort of directing your experience so they can control what you're looking at and make sure it's as good as possible. And I think this vehicle does that a lot. It turns left and right, and it'll tilt back, and it points you the way it would point a camera at a certain scene, which I think is really great.
Yeah, I have some really great memories on the actual vehicle, as weird as that sounds. I mean, yes, of the ride, but it's so I like how everything kind of, if you notice when you're looking at other people on the other Doom Buggies, like obviously, they turn and you turn a few seconds later because they're all kind of bringing you through that same view.
Yeah.
Because of that, my brother at one point found a great, I forget where it was in the ride, but there was a certain point where we were kind of, I guess, easily reachable, and he was in the other Doom Buggy in front of me and reached out and was able to grab my arm in the Doom Buggy I was in, scared the crap out of me. And that is one of my biggest memories in Haunted Mansion period, is when he did that, just to see if he could touch me from where he was, and he could. And totally made me jump. And that just shows you how close the proximity is, but yet, you've got your own speaker system in it that's playing the, dialogue and the music and all of that. So you do feel like you're experiencing it with the person that you're with, but it is kind of cool that you're so close to, everybody else. Also, I love at the end where they have the hologram of the ghost, the hitchhiking ghost that's supposed to be leaving with you.
Yep.
And again, they use the Doom Buggy while there, because either he's, sitting in between the two of you, or he's sitting on top of the Doom Buggy, or, various positions that obviously they took the idea of okay, how's this going to make sense and look with the actual ride vehicle. And I think that's pretty cool. And obviously the vehicle has, made sense and done well, because there are other rides that utilize the same kind of vehicle. I know, I believe the Finding Nemo in Epcot uses it. The Little Mermaid ride, I think in New Fantasyland, it's like a seashell. Same sort of idea, obviously themed differently. And but the first one that I know of that used it was Haunted Mansion.
And let's not forget, well, actually, yes, I can think of another ride that has also sort of used it, but that's actually my next ride vehicle. I just also wanted to point out, you also have the bars that'll close for you, and how they just tie it into the story where it's a ghost pushing the bars down for you. I think little touches like that. This isn't the case like Body Wars or Star Tours, where the vehicle is the ride, but they work it so well into the ride itself that it just becomes a part of it, Next up is my number 1, which is back in Epcot, and also I believe was inspired by the Doom Buggy to an extent. So my number 1 is not Mission Space, but here we are at Mission Space. Why? Because My number one ride used to live here, and it is the ride vehicles from Horizons. Now, Horizons is an old attraction. It closed down in the early 2000s. It was there since the 80s, and it was very much like a Doom Buggy style Omnimover. Same idea with like the deep seats in there that have the sides that block the view, so it felt like you were on your own personal ride. And the real reason that this made my list as opposed to like some other Omnimovers aside from Haunted Mansion is because despite being a ride from the 80s, it actually introduced an element of interactivity, and I think as far as I can tell, and I've been looking for it, it seems like the first ride to really introduce this sort of interactive option. And the idea is throughout the ride, you're visiting all these different places in the future, an underwater city, a space station, and then a farm in the desert. And then when it's time to go back to the present, it presents with you the options of which way you want to go back. Do you want to go through the ocean city or the space station or so on and so forth? And it presented on a little panel in front of you, and the people in the vehicle vote, and then majority rules. Whoever picks, it'll play a specific ending for you to go through. And we see that sort of interactivity popping up in the parks now all the time, whether it's in the queue or in like Mission Space where you're pushing buttons here or there. But I feel like Horizons was the ride that really pioneered that, and so for that it is my number one ride vehicle. And a lot of that's also nostalgia. I remember going on it so much as a kid, and because you had those different endings, you could ride it 3 times and get 3 completely different experiences. So my number one for sure.
So one, is this kind of why you hate Mission Space? Like, is it
like anger because
it took look,
you're not my real ride like that.
I'm just saying.
I would say the reason why I don't like Mission Space is not because it's not Horizons. What was all about like replacing the old with the new and changing. They couldn't even they should have at least updated the animatronics haircuts to be like not slow ride. It was an exciting ride, but you walked away excited because it gave you excited to see that at a Mission Space. Like, what's it gonna be like to live on Mars and go to Mars, and are we gonna see that? And it ended up being go to Mars. Elon Musk wants to go to Mars, and he thinks we're gonna be able to do it. But yeah, that's my number one. I'm probably going to edit most of that rant out because it's, again, another video for another time. But alas, let's move on to your number one, which was my number 4 that we skipped over. And it is not in Epcot or the Magic Kingdom. Actually, come to think of it, it's the first attraction on this list in Hollywood Studios.
The first and only.
And your number one is Rock and Roller Coaster.
Indeed it is.
Why? Why is it? Why, Christine?
G-Forces. No.
G-Force. Not only do they have G-Forces, the whole records label is named after it.
I know. Isn't that so funny? So I love the vehicle for Rock and Roller Coaster. I, again, don't really have to reiterate, but do love roller coasters in general. And the vehicle is a giant stretch limousine, which works with the story when you get there that you go to see Aerosmith at G-Force Records in the studio, and they have to rush off to a show, but they don't want to leave you hanging because obviously you're their number one super duper fan, and they say, all right, we're going to take them, we're going to bring them backstage to go see a show, and of course they do that cheesy line where it's like, let's get them a limo, and he's like, actually make that a super stretch, which is because the entire vehicle
room's going,
yeah, it probably fits like 12 people, maybe more than that. You when you leave from there, you go into the back alley of the studio, and there you see the limousines that are the actual roller coaster vehicles, and I remember the first time I ever did it. That was just kind of so cool to me, was both the theming of the back alley and seeing that it looked like an actual limo. I wasn't expecting that, I just thought, okay, whatever, it's just gonna be like
a roller coaster. Yeah.
And it's this like blue Cadillac limo. And what makes it even better is while you're waiting to get on yours, you can see the launch happen. What is it? It goes from like 0 to
60 in like a couple seconds.
Yeah. And there's something really, really fun about watching that launch and seeing how fast it can go.
It's so very deliberate. Like it goes back to that tenet of Walt's design of making sure you're seeing what they want you to see. And the idea that you walk out of those doors and the first thing you see is the limo where it's queued up to launch, so that, the first thing that happens is you just watch this thing shoot out and just gain all this speed is great, because it's like working the vehicle into your story before you're even getting onto the vehicle.
Exactly. And then what's really cool is, they have built-in speakers, kind of like we said, Haunted Mansion had theirs.
Yep.
And they play Aerosmith, obviously, while you're on the ride.
No, Christine, they don't play Aerosmith. They blast Aerosmith.
They blast Aerosmith. Right. So and every seat, I think, has its own speakers. I'm pretty sure it's not just like for the two people.
No, every seat has its own two speakers. It's like left and right, which is great. Yeah.
So you've got that and the actual song choice. I think there's 4 different loops that you can get.
Yep. I don't know where you are, by the way, but I'm about to hop on the ride.
Okay.
I'm getting on.
So the loops actually change. So there's like 4 different loops of different Aerosmith songs that you can hear. So that kind of makes it cool. Kind of makes the ride a little bit different. If you go in a couple times in a row, which I definitely have. And again, just add, does a little something extra with the vehicle. Just add something really cool. And and it's supposed to be, if I'm correct, it's almost like you're listening to like a radio of like the live show as you're like plummeting, through this roller coaster to like get to the show.
If you actually think about the storyline of the ride, you're going to go to the show, you're listening to the concert while you're going there, and then when you step out at the red carpet, it's the end of the concert. So technically, you missed the entire concert because you're stuck in LA traffic, so to speak.
You broke a ton of traffic laws for nothing.
For nothing. You just ended up listening to the concert on the radio. But that's fine, because, you got to listen to it on the radio. And the reason why this would end up on my list, I feel like this would be my number 6, is it just seems like a no-brainer. Like, roller coasters are so great and fun. Why not blast fun music while you're listening? And maybe I don't go on a lot of roller coasters outside of Disney, so maybe this is more common than I think, but it felt like when Disney did this, they were doing something pretty new, which was, just set up speakers and blast some great music.
It was. There is one other ride, I believe, in Universal. I know, gasp, how dare I mention them. I believe there's a new one that came out where you can actually, it's a lot of different kind of like pop and rap artists, but you can pick the song you want to listen to, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of other coasters do that. I know it's those 2. I'm sure there's probably some others, but it's not a really common thing at all, actually. So when Disney did it, it was a pretty big deal.
And I think the reason they did it is because, to the average theme park, a roller coaster is just a roller coaster, but Disney's all about story. And when you're telling a story, you have to tell it with every sense, whether it's sight or sound or, feeling. And, sound's just as important on a roller coaster for Disney as any other sense. And I think that's what's really great about it. Same thing with, Space Mountain plays music now. They've got the updated soundtrack that it doesn't have the same, blast in your ear style, but it's something that's worked into it, which I think is really fantastic. It's definitely a great ride vehicle. And it just is one of those things where it's enhanced by the fact that it's part of a really great ride. All right, so there you have it, our top 5 ride vehicles at Walt Disney World. Now, like I said at the beginning, those are just our top 5. What I would love to hear are what are your top 5? Maybe you agree with the list. Maybe you really disagree with the list. Let me know in the comments below. Love to hear what you think. And also, if you have an idea for a top 5 that you would like Christine and I to cover, also feel free to mention it in the comments below. Some of these other ideas that we have planned and some that we've done in the past are just all inspired by you, the subscriber, who went ahead and suggested it. Now, if you want to follow either of us on the social networks, I'm on Twitter at RobPlays, and Christine?
I'm on Twitter at Big Bruin Evil.
Without a G. Bruin.
Bruin.
I'm going to try and remember this time to just at least put it in the description. I can't make any promises because that's future Rob's job, and he is just a totally other person.
Well, I will yell. Future Christine will yell at future Rob.
Okay.
Reed forgets.
Perfect. And you also do some other stuff on the internet. How about you talk about that?
I do. I run a fashion blog at twogirlsoneoutfit.com, and I've actually been getting back into my gaming blog. If you guys want to check that out, that's at checkpointreached.com.
There you go. Perfect. Again, Christine, I want to thank you for joining me. These are so much more fun, although they make it so much more painful because we're not actually at the real Disney World, but that's a problem that, we just have to live with. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic week. Whatever you're doing, make the most of it because it makes it so much better. And I hope to see you all next time for the next episode of the Minecraft Disney Top 5. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Come on, throw us an Ian Malcolm quote. Come on.
That was my real laugh, not my email.
Perfect. Wouldn't that be great if they refurbed it with Ellen and Neil deGrasse Tyson?
I would love that.
Right?
That would be so great.
Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Ellen.
That would just be, my brain would explode.
It'd be perfect.
It would
Okay.
be perfect. I was upset because I was reading that Neil deGrasse Tyson's doing a talking tour,
Uh-huh.
but he's not, since I guess because he technically works in New York at the museum, he doesn't have a date for New York. It's like all these other states.
He does a lot of live episodes of Star Talk sometimes in Brooklyn. We should go one time.
Good to know. because
Also,
I
you
was-
called him Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Did I?
Like the Canadian soap opera for teenagers.
Neil deGrasse.